Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining me for this brand new interview. Of course, we are here. 2021 is among us. We have survived 2020. We are all good. We are all set. It is going to be a good year, hopefully, because of course we never know what the future holds. But I am talking to someone very special right now. So you see, you may have heard of this individual as a trainer alongside the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, but people don't know that he's also a professional wrestler. People don't know that he is, he really has an understanding of the business unlike any other. He started the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, like I mentioned before, alongside with Seth Rollins. And there's so many students that have came out of that wrestling school that have been mainstream. I mean, we're talking about Benjamin Carter, and already Travis Titan is a part of that conversation as well. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the one, the only, Marek Brave. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on tonight. Happy to talk to the people, give them something to watch, take their minds off whatever's going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's always good to kind of keep your mind off of things. I feel like that it's always good to be optimistic during times of like, oh, well, is the world ending?
We don't know. It could be. Technically, the world's ending just a little bit more each and every day. So we'll give you that somber thought to kick this off.
Well, of course, aside from the kind of uncertainty and just the unpredictability of life, I do want to talk to you about just, the craftsmanship you have for this art of professional wrestling and the way that you approach this as a competitor, as a trainer. It's really cool how you really put the art into a whole new perspective.
Well, yeah, man. Sometimes I feel a little pretentious when we call it art and whatnot, but it really is. It's our form of art. It's our form of entertainment. And when you first start out, there's rules to professional wrestling, right? You learn these things, and that's part of my job to teach these things. But one of the sayings that we use at our school, which we stole from our good friend Jimmy Jacobs, is if it's good, it's good. And sometimes you don't need to be able to explain why it's good for it to be good. It's cool if you can understand why, because then you can replicate it later on. But sometimes we get caught up in overthinking everything, and we don't just allow something to be entertaining, because at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's entertainment. Mm-hmm. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it a sport or an art form, but it is entertainment, right? People pay their money to watch you conduct this art form. And if it's not entertaining, then what's the point? There really isn't one. So make it entertaining. And there doesn't really have to be an explanation for why it's entertaining, as long as a group of people find it entertaining and they're willing to spend their money on it and they enjoy it and it helps them get through whatever they need to get through, then you've done your job properly.
Absolutely. And the way, like I mentioned before, that you run your wrestling academy and teaching all these potential stars of the professional wrestling world, whether they go to WWE, NXT, TNA, AEW, wherever the case may be, you guys really establish a core value of this is the business. This is how wrestling is. And you really have to go into this business with really a strong passion for what this is, because of course, like a pandemic, we never know what else happens in life.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have a passion for it, as you could say for pretty much anything in life, if you don't have a passion for it, you're not going to be able to give it 100%. You're not going to be able to give it your all. And this isn't really a business where you can kind of half-ass it, like you have to give 100% if you want to make it to the big time. You know what I mean? Like if you want to just be, a local indie guy that wrestles once a month or twice a month, which there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your dream and your aspiration, that's totally acceptable and totally okay. But if you do have aspirations of making it to the big time, and most of our students do, we have a pretty fine facility with some pretty amazing trainers, and it's you have to invest a certain amount of time and energy and money to come and be able to partake in the training and to graduate and whatnot. And even just doing that and completing the 12-week course, that shows that you have a level of commitment and a level of passion for this business. So if those are your dreams and those are your goals, we can absolutely get you started on that path. But I think a lot of people expect us to have some sort of magic pill or magic potion that's suddenly going to turn you into this person who's in fantastic shape and has the best personality and is the most athletic, performer, wherever you're from. And that's just not the case. We can put the tools in your toolbox, but it's up to you to build a masterpiece with them. So, there is a certain level of passion that it takes to be successful in this business. And if you don't have that passion, you'll get weeded out pretty quickly, if you ask me.
Absolutely. And what's actually pretty funny was that we had mentioned before this interview had started that I had just literally came from a taping over a local professional wrestling promotion. And what one of the people that came to speak to the performers, of course, a color commentator by the name of Rock Riddle over here in the Southern California area. And his main advice was, if you don't believe it, whether that's character, whether that's what you do in the ring, you shouldn't be in this business. So I think that really takes to heart for me, hearing that kind of firsthand and seeing how the Black and Brave Academy kind of establishes that within their training. I think it's absolutely great to be in this business.
Yeah, it's got to be believable to you. That's something that we hammer home throughout the 12-week course. And even after that, students stick around. They move from wherever they have come from, and they live here in Davenport, Iowa, and the surrounding cities, which make up the Quad Cities. And that's just how it is. You got to be able to have that passion. You got to be able to have that drive. And you got to give it your all. It's just like anything in life. That's how you make it successful,
Absolutely. And one question I'm kind of curious about is that, of course, we are living through a worldwide pandemic. A lot of stuff has closed down, but slowly but surely, we're kind of getting some stuff back up, especially with wrestling training. And a lot of these take, of course, the precautions needed during a pandemic. What are some of the protocols, if I may ask, that the Black and Brave Academy are taking during this pandemic for the trainees?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had periodic times throughout the pandemic where everyone in our facility has been tested to make sure that we're all negative for the virus. We have had a couple cases where students have been positive, and we've paused training and we've taken a few days off while everyone else can go get tested. And as long as you've tested negative, you can come back. As far as day-to-day goes, we're taking temperatures. Everyone that enters the facility has to have their temperature taken, immediately wash hands upon entering. If you're not in the ring or working out, you must have a mask on at all times. We encourage all of our students, when they're not under our supervision, to be safe, to be careful, to quarantine within their groups. And really their groups at this point are just everyone within the Black and Brave family. A lot of these students come from all over the country, all over the world, really. So it's not like they know people and are going out and hitting the clubs. You know what I mean? Iowa is one of those states that maybe didn't take it as seriously as we should have. So rules were a little bit more relaxed as far as restaurants and bars and things. So we definitely had to do our due diligence and make sure our students knew that if you're trying to get through this program and you want to be able to graduate, then you have to make sure that you're staying safe when you're not around us. So we increased our cleaning protocols. Before pre-pandemic, we were doing a deep clean of the gym once a week. Now we are deep cleaning the gym multiple times a week, as well as every individual person, cleaning down any seats they were on, any workout equipment they were using, just doing our best to stay hygienic. And outside of a couple isolated cases, which did not lead to a full-on outbreak, we've been lucky so far. I'm going to knock on my desk here, and hopefully we'll stay that way. But we're business as usual with some added precautions and making sure everyone's staying safe. We also have a policy that a lot of our students are wrestling on the independent circuit, and they're going from town to town. So we have a policy: if you leave the Quad Cities, if you leave Davenport, Iowa, to wrestle somewhere else, you must get a negative test before you're allowed back in the gym, just in case you were around someone and unknowingly caught COVID. So we're definitely doing the best we can to stay open and to give our students what they paid for and give them the full experience, but also to stay safe while doing so.
Absolutely. And not only is Marek Brave a former tag team champion alongside with Tyler Black, but also a tag team in terms of training as well. Before we get more into the training aspect and the kind of the beginnings of the Black and Brave Academy, I do want to talk about the professional wrestler known as Marek Brave. So the question I had for you is that where did that kind of start for you in professional wrestling go? Because I know that you obviously had a couple of, very, very decorated career that started all the way in the beginning of October 30th of 2003 and then just made your waves from then. So what was that kind of beginning process for you like?
August of 2003. So just a couple months more than the internet might tell you. But oh gosh, I was a professional wrestling fan from the time I was 5 or 6 years old on. I had some friends. I'm not originally from Davenport, Iowa. I was born in Manchester, New Hampshire. I've lived kind of all over the place. But I became a professional wrestling fan when I was living in Kansas. And I had an next door neighbor who was a fan, and he got me into it. And it became an obsession from there. And then just so happened to move to Davenport, Iowa in 1997 when I was 11 years old. And a couple years later, I found a group of people who liked professional wrestling as much as I did, yet they had also made a makeshift wrestling ring in a barn because it's Iowa, so that's what we do out here. But we had a makeshift ring in a barn, and they invited me and my friend group from high school out, and we got in the so-called ring, and I think I did a backflip, and my best friend, his name's Keith, he did a front flip, and they were like, "All right, you guys are in. You're in the group." And that group later became SCW, Scott County Wrestling, now known as SCW Pro. And I actually run the independent promotion now. And that was the first promotion I ever wrestled for. Again, August 2003. That was my first professional wrestling show. That was Seth Rollins' first professional wrestling show. And in fact, he gave me some twisting leg drop off the top rope that night. So forever linking us in the history of pro wrestling, whether we continued on as a tag team, as rivals, or business owners with Black and Brave now. But yeah, that's how I started. Before that, I was going to indie wrestling shows, mainly IWA Mid-South and a company called RCW, which later became Dreamwave Wrestling here in the Midwest. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. But, when I was 16 years old, I was going to indie shows and seeing guys like CM Punk and Colt Cabana and Jimmy Jacobs and Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin and Delirious and Matt Sydal and all these guys. And I was like, man, I want to do this. And so I did. I graduated high school in 2004. And that's when Seth and I went and got our real professional wrestling training. Up until that point, we had just done mini camps, like day camps, with guys like Shane Douglas, Samoa Joe, Joey Legend, Christopher Daniels, guys like that. But we left for our full-on professional wrestling training in October of 2004, where we were trained by Danny Daniels, the owner of AAW in Chicago now. And we trained from October to December of 2004. And at that point, based on the fact that we had already been wrestling for over a year at that point on shows in front of fans, and based on the fact that we have been doing these day camps, we didn't really need much training. We knew how to do all the moves. We needed the polishing up. We needed to learn the psychology and whatnot, and we did. He finished us up, and we hit the roads. We made the towns, and we started garnering a little bit of a name for ourselves, which was nice.
Absolutely. And of course, that passion, like we mentioned before, just continuing on, especially from the beginning to now. One sidebar question, which I'm really interested in knowing. So you did start your career in 2003, and relatively 2003 was still during that era of the Giants, as they say. Because you had Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, you had Chris Benoit at the time, you had Matt Morgan, A-Train. There's so many like big names that were like big muscular individuals. So was there a point in the beginning of your career where you kind of said, man, like I'm not 6'5", 260-pound kind of muscle guy? Was there any kind of point like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we first started, the business was still a big man's game. Nowadays, it's not uncommon to have a very popular, accomplished wrestler who's 5'8", 5'9". You know what I mean? That
Mhm.
was unheard of when we broke in, and I'm 6'2". Now I grew a little bit since I first started, but I would say I was no shorter than 6 foot even when we first broke into the business in the summer of 2003. But at that time, I was one of the smallest guys out there. I remember, eventually getting trained and hit making the towns in late 2004, early 2005, and we were the small guys. We were the flippy guys. We were the guys doing, the big frog splashes and moonsaults off the top rope and all the dives and whatnot. And we're wrestling guys who are so much bigger than us. And it never occurred to us that one day we would be considered the big guys. You know what I mean? At 6'2", 215 pounds.
Mhm.
But that's cool. That's cool that everybody gets an opportunity now, and there's no discrimination based on height or weight or whatnot. But yeah, there was definitely, absolutely a time when it was like, all right, we're too small to be big time professional wrestlers. But I think in our little niche, in our little corner of the world, we can be those cool guys that do the cool flips, and everyone will think we're pretty rad. So
Absolutely. And once again, that motivation just to stand out from the rest and to really, stand out, especially now where someone that's 5'2" could be the biggest name in professional wrestling. One thing I do want to mention about your professional wrestling career is that April 6th of, or no, take it back, April 8th of 2017, you did retire from the pro wrestling world. Can you talk about, was that planned for you to retire during that stage? Did you have a couple of years more left in the belt, but you just decided, hey, it's over? What was kind of that thought process like?
well, I had suffered a pretty severe neck injury in May of 2007. Actually trying out for Ring of Honor. I basically had a Ring of Honor contract that was in the bag, kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge deal. And I injured my neck pretty severely. So through the next 10 years, I didn't really know how severe the injury was because I didn't have insurance at the time. And I was a young kid with no insurance and no money. So they basically gave me a quick x ray. They were like, all right, nothing's broken. You're good to go. What I didn't know is that I had two slip discs in my neck, and throughout the next 10 years, they just got worse. And eventually, fast forward 10 years later, we start the school. I'm making a little bit of money now. I'm doing all right. I have insurance. I'm like, maybe it's time to get this neck checked out because it has been bothering me. And I went and I got a full on x-ray, MRI, CT scan. And they told me, hey, you're going to get your results in about a week. We'll call you, whatever. They called me the same day that I got all of the scans. And it was like classic cliche doctor line. They're like, hey, are you sitting down? And I was like, I can be. What's going on? They were like, you need to retire. You cannot wrestle anymore. You cannot work out anymore. You're, this close to being paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of your life if you continue to do what you do. So to answer your question, no, it wasn't planned. It wasn't an expected thing. It was all very sudden, unfortunately. And it's wrestling. I still had to finish up my my commitments. I held a heavyweight championship for a couple different companies, so I had to drop those titles. And in my last match, I did over 30 minutes in a main event in front of 600 people, which for Davenport, Iowa, that's a sizable crowd. And I didn't bump a single time. And I challenge anyone to watch that match without knowing that previously, or without dwelling on that knowledge, but try to watch that match and ask yourself, like, can you even tell that I didn't bump? That I'm proud of that last match. I did it eventually do a 6-man tag later on, but it was all gimmicked up, and I wouldn't necessarily consider that my last match. I'd consider the match you're referencing in April of 2017 as my last match. But you can't watch that match and think, oh, he's protecting himself or whatever. We still went out there and did a good job at telling a good story and entertaining the people, and that was it. And a week later, I announced to the world via Twitter that that was it. That was the end for me as a performer. And then a year later, I got neck surgery. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't see it, but they fused
absolutely.
together my C5 through C7 vertebrae, so I have spinal fusion surgery.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to a big surgery like that, when it comes to a big injury like that, there's so much that takes on your brain and your mental game, and it's so bothering. It gives a huge adversity towards what you want to do. But of course, when it comes to Merrick Brave, you took that and you're like, okay, I understand that one dream is over, but one dream is now beginning. And that's through your training. It's through the things that you've done with all these other professional wrestlers and your own career with Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. So, there's always a good alternative at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. When I was a kid, if you would have told me, in 1991 or 92, when I first became a professional wrestling fan, that someday I would make my entire living off of the professional wrestling business, I would have laughed at you and told you that, you must have a faulty crystal ball because that is the dream, that's the dream to make a living off of this business. And I'm one of the very few guys who can say that they do that. And I'm even in a subset of a subset where I'm one of the few guys who can make a living off of professional wrestling without having a contract from a major company like WWE or AEW. So I'm blessed in that way.
Absolutely. And speaking about WWE and AEW, you are partners in crime, best friends with the one and only Seth Rollins, Tyler Black. Both Iowa boys, Davenport, Iowa, hometown heroes. The one thing I do got to ask is what was like, of course, you guys were in the beginnings of your professional wrestling careers together. Uh, you know, was the experience of working with someone like Seth, who's not only just your partner but also your best friend, was there anything that like made you think differently than you thought of before in terms of professional wrestling?
He was always a really great motivator in terms of working hard and doing your best in every avenue, not just in the ring, but getting in good shape and working out in the gym. Clearly, he's in fantastic shape. He always has been. He's always been an all natural type of guy, no performance enhancers, so to speak. So he was very motivational in that aspect. But I think we both pushed each other because we were both young and athletic and good. In our friend group, we were the two standouts. We were the ones that were really good, and we were the ones that were going to make it.
Mhm.
And if you ask a lot of the guys that we were on shows with back in the day, if you ask our trainer, they'll tell you, "Oh, Marek was the better one. He was better at wrestling. He was better at psychology when we first broke into the business." And Seth will begrudgingly admit the same. It took him many years to be able to admit that. But when we started, I was better than he was, and obviously he's far surpassed me at this point. I don't want anyone thinking that, in my head I'm delusional. I think, oh, I'm still better than he is. No, he's had many more years on a grander stage, learning from very, very intelligent individuals and experience that I didn't get to the full extent that he did. But we pushed each other. We were very, very competitive with each other. We're friends, and we always looked out for each other, but we always wanted to be better than the other person. So it was a healthy competition and a friendly rivalry. But I think he would probably admit the same, that without me there to help push him, he may have not got to the level that he's at now. And without him there to motivate me and push me, I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at right now either. So I think we both got lucky in that sense.
So, you talked about the passion that you have for pro wrestling, not only just as a performer, but also as a trainer. And you kind of, you bring that knowledge on to your students and whoever you work with, whether that's through training or whether that's through just any professional wrestling company that you associate with. The one thing I do got to ask is that, so that passion that you bring onto your students, is that something that you get, like you keep deep in your heart sometimes, like knowing that you're sharing your passion, sharing your knowledge of the business? Does it really
Oh
make
yeah,
your heart?
absolutely. I'm super passionate about professional wrestling. I want everyone. who steps foot through those doors at Black and Brave to feel the same way. It's very easy for me to flip that switch and become passionate if I feel somebody is maybe not putting in 100% effort. I'm sure you can ask a lot of my graduates and prior students. When I've flipped that switch, and when I'm about to dig into you a little bit, because I need to motivate you and get you to bump it up a level here. But yeah, man, I'm still to this day very, very, very passionate about professional wrestling. Gosh, and I hope I always am, because I don't know if I could do the job that I'm doing now if I wasn't passionate about professional wrestling.
Absolutely. And you talk about your former students and current students that you have right now. Two notable names I do want to mention is one Benjamin Carter and one Travis Titan. Those two names have made waves in the independent wrestling scene, whether that's through AEW Dark, Impact, or anything of like Warrior Wrestling in the Midwest, or anything of that nature. So I have to ask, when it comes to those two in particular, what was the energy like having your former students really make an impact, not just in the professional wrestling world, but also in the little groups of the training facility?
Hey, that's great. I always tell the guys and the girls, if one of us succeeds, we all succeed. And we all buy into that. That's true. If one of our guys or one of our girls succeeds, then we all do. It raises us all to another level, and brings more attention and more eyes on the school, which is always nice. But it opens doors. If one of our students succeeds somewhere, and that promoter is like, oh man, this kid does it the right way. Where did he come from? Oh, Black and Brave. That's fantastic. Who else do they have that we might be interested in? Who else can, what other can we tap that resource a little bit more to help benefit, whatever promotion it may be. So it's a good thing for all of us. And we're all very, very excited for our guys and girls who get an opportunity. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Zicky Dice as someone who came from our academy, graduated in our third class actually, and he's attained a very high level of success with the NWA, and has some nice opportunities on his plate when his contract runs out there. Another guy, Steve Manders, has been killing it in GCW and various other promotions across the country, and I think his day is coming for an opportunity at a larger company. We actually had a handful of our guys scheduled for a WWE tryout right when the pandemic hit. I'm talking right when it hit. They were flown down to Orlando, and they did their medicals, their weigh-ins and everything. And then the very next day is when WWE was like, we're shutting this stuff down. We're sending people home. They sent all of our guys back home before they could actually complete their tryout. So once this situation calms down and we can get back to a bit of normalcy, I think you'll see those guys brought back down there. They'll get to complete their tryout, and we might have a couple of other celebrations to have when that happens.
Absolutely. Just the fact that, every student succeeds, and the fact that it's a team effort, it's truly something special, because I feel like a lot of wrestling schools don't really put that first instead of just the wrestling. So it's always great to kind of put that as a team effort.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we never pushed any of our students into an opportunity that they hadn't earned for themselves. I think a lot of people think that just because you come to Black and Brave and Seth Rollins is a head trainer here and a co-owner here, that means after your 12 weeks is up and you graduate the program, people think we're going to call Triple H up on the phone and we're going to say, hey, Trips, we got a group of 12 more we can send down to you, and everyone's getting a tryout. It's not how it is. That's not how it should be. And if it were that way, that would be doing a disservice to the students that come through, because everyone needs an equal opportunity and everybody needs a chance to prove that they have what it takes. And if you don't earn that on your own, then it's not going to mean anything when you do get that opportunity. So we've been at school for a little over 6 years now. We're finally starting to get some students out there who are doing some big things. And some people might ask, oh, why did it take so long? That's why it took so long. We wanted them to earn it on their own. And if you ask me, that's really not that long of a time anyway. Seth got signed to WWE when he was 7 years into the business, and that's relatively quick. Or it used to be. Now people are, I mean, they're signing people left and right. So every company is really, it's kind of an arms race to see who can, accumulate or cultivate the most young talent. Um, but it used to be when he got signed 7 years into the business, that's really fast. So we're we're just reaching that point with a handful of our students. So I really do think you're going to see a wave of a lot of our guys and girls getting these opportunities. And I think because we've made them earn it along the way, I think they're going to do well when those opportunities do arise.
Absolutely. Pandemic or not, we will see more Black and Brave students come into the big scene and, of course, make a wave in the professional wrestling scene. One thing I do have to ask as a kind of a sidebar question, and it's kind of, maybe you could count this as a spitball or a fireball question, because you are Marek Brave, of course, the one, the only. The one thing I do have to ask is that the moment that I think shocked everybody in terms of WWE was when Seth Rollins sacrificed himself for the Survivor Series men's match in 2020. Of course, we all know the reason why he did that first, because to comfort Becky Lynch during her pregnancy. But when you saw that moment, what was your main reaction?
Probably, what an easy night at the office. You know what I mean? I think that was my initial reaction was, man, you flew all the way down there and got all dressed up and slicked your hair back and everything just to take one kick to the face and get out of Dodge, so to speak. But yeah, I guess that was my initial reaction. And yes, we all knew the reason why that was happening, and good for him. And outside of some injuries he's had, he doesn't take time off from work. So this is his first real opportunity to spend some time at home and focus on life here and the life that he is building and creating with Becky right now. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy he gets that time to focus on other things.
Absolutely. Well, Marek, I do want to thank you so much for the conversation, getting this conversation about professional wrestling and your career as a trainer and as a wrestler. But before we go, I do have one final question. And this to me is kind of an interesting one because I have talked to trainers in the past about this. So what do you think is missing today from professional wrestling? I know we have AEW that's producing their stuff right now. We have WWE still kind of hanging on in there during the time of the pandemic with the Thunderdome and the baseball stadium that's going to happen soon. We also have Impact Wrestling doing what they're doing, and now the collaboration with Impact and AEW. Is there something really missing, pandemic aside?
Well, pandemic or not, I think one thing we all have to remember is that, and I kind of touched on this earlier, but this is entertainment, right? Professional wrestling is entertainment. And you have to remember that storytelling and telling stories is a very classic form of entertainment. And really, it's the only form of entertainment. Almost all forms of entertainment are based around the idea of telling a story, right? A good movie tells a story. TV show tells a story. For me, a good song, when a song is good, it takes me on an emotional roller coaster and tells me a story, teaches me something. And I think a lot of times, maybe not a lot of times, but sometimes nowadays, students aren't taught that when they're being brought into the business. And that's not a major focus for incoming individuals in the professional wrestling world, independent level, professional level, whatever you want to call it, major league level. I think we're getting less focused on telling stories, and that's probably like a microcosm of our society, where social media is so prevalent and everything comes at you in an instant, and they have to grab your attention and keep your attention. I mean, think about it. You read a tweet and that's new information that you're taking in at a given point. And then mere seconds later, you're scrolling and that tweet's forgotten. It's gone. It's lost to time. You
Right.
never scroll backwards on Twitter. You never, unless you're like, I want to show you this funny thing I saw, right? But you don't wake up in the morning and scroll back 5 days and be like, what was the news 5 days ago? I don't remember. You just keep scrolling. So that's our nature as a society right now is what can you give me right now? What's an immediate gratification, immediate satisfaction? And so we've moved to this type of professional wrestling world that's based around gifts. I want 6 seconds or 10 seconds of action, and that's it. I don't care about anything else. So naturally, the most gifable items are dives and flips and head drops and crazy spinning, twisting, reversals, and whatever it may be, right? But all of those things are not what makes a good story. And you can tell a good story with a punch and a kick. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin based his entire career off that. Punch, kick, stunner, double bird, we're going home, baby. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and nobody's going to sit here and be like, oh, Stone Cold was boring. Stone Cold sucks. This, that, and the other. But for some reason, you slap a headlock on to start a match and the whole crowd chants, boring now, boring, boring, boring. Just watch it play out. We're getting there. We'll get to it. You know what I mean? So I think we just all need to remember that cool stuff is cool. And I'm not telling you not to do cool stuff. But if you can build to your cool stuff by telling a proper story and making all of the seemingly small moments of a match mean something, then all of those small moments meaning something will build into one big match, one big full-length feature film that will mean something, okay? And not just 10 seconds of your match means something, or 3 different 10-second spots of your match means something. Your whole match can mean something. And when we get back to that, and when we get back to focusing on that, then we will have an emotional connection with our audience. We will have created that bond, so to speak, and people will have to keep tuning in. They'll have to watch to see where the story goes and what happens with this guy and what happens with this girl. And to me, that's what pro wrestling's all about. And again, to reiterate, I'm not telling you not to do cool stuff. People get lost in that. They're like, oh, they don't want us to do the cool thing. No, we want you to do cool things. Don't get me wrong. Cool things are cool. And cool things are good, but just build to those cool things and make all the other things mean something so that when you do the cool thing, now that cool thing, instead of meaning a little bit where people are like, oh, pretty good, instead they lose their minds for it. They blow the roof off the place, and we're all doing better as an industry for it. So I'll get off my old man soapbox now, but let's make things mean something again.
Absolutely. Again, professional wrestling is an art at the end of the day. It's something special. It's storytelling at its best between 2 professional wrestlers, male or female, telling one complete story. Because at the end of the day, you're as a crowd, as someone in the back, as someone in the ring, you're really telling that unique story at the end of the day.
If we can get to the point where people are being taught that again and they don't have to learn that 8 years, 10 years from when they start, that's just going to make the whole industry good again. When you look at the best times for independent wrestling, maybe I'm biased, but 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, those were fantastic years for professional wrestling on the independent level. And that's because there were guys who were really good and really athletic doing cool things that meant something. You know what I mean? Instead of just, I can do a flip, so I'm going to do a flip. And I don't care about the rest of the stuff. Let's build this whole match around this one flip. That's all fine and good. But when you can make everything mean something, now you can really hold on to people's attention, which is what we need in a world where everyone's attention spans are quite short nowadays.
Well, we hope that attention span does grow out throughout the pandemic and after the pandemic. But once again, Marek, thank you so much for being a part of this interview. Thank you so much for the conversation. For those who don't know, you can follow Marek on all social medias. Link will be down in the description below. But not just that, if you want to follow the great aspect, the great training, the great learning, and the knowledge being given from the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, make sure you guys follow them on all social medias as well. Links will be down in the description below. And if you think you got what it takes, the passion for pro wrestling and the knowledge, make sure you guys email Black and Brave Wrestling or just check them out. Just, give Marek a call and be like, hey, I think I got it. But aside from that, hopefully I'm hoping there's no numbers going to be given here. Once again, Marek, thank you so much for this conversation, and I hope to see you again, my friend.
Thanks for having me on. It was a blast.
And until I see you guys in the next interview, peace.